Okay, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Hyder here, and I'm not alone. We have a friend and the founder of a startup, Daniel from Smokeless. Hello, Daniel.
Hi there.
So, and before we jump to you and to have a conversation with you about the way you look at this time regarding the startup ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, digital health, so the area you're in, which is pretty regulated, and we are regulated driven VC, so this is interesting. Before jumping into that, very quickly, I'm going to answer a lot of uh, a lot of conversation that came to us recently, and we just talked a lot about data-driven VCs, and people were telling me, "What the hell, does it mean to be data-driven?" Right? It means everything and nothing. Are you guys just using spreadsheets and you call yourself data-driven? So I just wanted, before we jump into that, as promised during this office hour, this format is very simple. We take all the questions we get, like big FAQ, every week, and we take 5-15 minutes usually per week to answer those. So I'm going to be very quick. Stand by, Daniel, and we will get back to you. So just for people who don't know us, we are a kind of a new kid around the block in Switzerland. We want to bridge industries, especially regulated ones. We also operate an SPV platforms, and we also help companies tokenize their shares so that they can liquidate more their assets in different countries or different setup. So I'm more from a pharma experience. So if you people following from a pharmaceutical background, I've been quite involved in transforming the industry there. But recently, since I think now post-COVID, I started to go to the other side of the fence, and that's why you see me driving this brand and company today. So data-driven VC. I don't know if people see it. I think yes, it is big enough. So what's happening is when we went into this, and I'm going to use some slides I found interesting from some data-driven VC blogs and thought leader that are vocal about this. It's time consuming. And usually you see big VCs having millions of analysts crunching, slides, putting some elements into spreadsheets. Recently, Airtable and Notions type, Coda type of platforms were very famous to structure this data. And obviously, around the corner, we have AI coming saying, can we do something with models around unstructured and structured data? So very interesting to see as well the transformation on that side. So we talk about startups like Daniel's one about innovation, and they do innovate. We also have to innovate on this side of the fence to actually get better at decision making. So this is the first thing. It's a very waterfall, long and transactional process. And why people wants to disrupt this, right? So why usually GPs and founders of those funds, they want to be better at investing, obviously, so understanding the patterns where things are going to blow up. They want also to be better at screening, so a bit of efficiency there, not spending time on the wrong product market fit, the wrong country, the wrong industry, and better at finding the good spots. Where do we actually see where the pool of value will be, where to play, where to win? And so understanding those studies, market research data takes a lot of time as well, and crunching those data together to find this intersection where the magic happens, it takes a lot of time. So that's why data-driven VC usually will try to demystify the art of doing this investment more with the science and looking at the data and finding the patterns, if that makes sense. And this is a bit small, but it is interesting to see if you look at the asset under management and also the people who are going to do that, right? We see a lot of early stage, smaller funds like us doing this data-driven play to actually have a chance to compete and be more agile at decision making, because we will be able to crunch more data quickly and we can adopt those tools in a faster pace than bigger VCs who have a more corporate structure. So that's why it's not a surprise that you will see smaller teams like us adopting faster those methodologies. And also, if you look at the world, right, since COVID, a lot of companies started to break the silos as well from regions to regions, and it means more data. And by bringing more data, and we want to focus on growth, it means understanding if you want to go to India, for example, or to China, obviously you need data to go there, and you need to identify the growth route that you could impose or you could advise to a startup. Like, should we start in the UK or Germany or Switzerland? And then what's next? What will be the next best decision to grow the startup? Is it the US? Is it emerging markets? So all of that represents a set of data that is not so easy to crunch if you don't have the manpower. But fortunately now tools are starting to pop up to help us. So data driven, definitely it's a new trend. So in the VC world, so if you are another VC and you're thinking, oh gosh, I should have started 5 years ago, not really true. You can leapfrog to here. It's just a question of finding the patterns and the algorithmic models to help you take better decisions. So we created an AC score on our company to basically crunch, I would say, a dozen of criteria, and our criteria will be as much on the teams and people than on the product market fit and the technology of the startup. So we will balance that in front of the market. That is what the company has been doing to penetrate the market so far. Maybe I would say we will weight that 40% of the value towards what this company and team could perceive doing in the future, which will be for us 60% biased towards the future. So this is something, just an example of how we will see the world on this. But I start giving this answer in this live to avoid just writing long emails. But yeah, so it's coming up. So you will see old school VCs working more with this, let's say 5, 10 years ago generation of VCs, and now us, a new generation that is going to be able to take faster decision, or to demystify or de-risk a lot of those uncertainties on behalf of those bigger VCs. So in terms of technology, you have a lot of companies that are in this space, like startups, literally helping crunching data or automating data. This slide deck, I can put it available in the comment section if people are interested. I follow those folks. They do a bit of this compilation of resources to keep you posted on what's new. And for us, at least when we started this journey, it was useful to follow people who really were on that data-driven wagon. And on that note, we stop for the FAQ answer part of this live, and we go back to you, Daniel. So in a nutshell, can you tell us who you are? Just do a little intro, and let me just get that out of the window. Up, here we go. So yeah, so tell us more about you. Where do you call us from?
Absolutely. Thanks. It's nice to be here right now. I'm in Munich. I'm a founder all my life. I started my first company when I was 14. It was just an early form of social media, which was way too early. It was a fun gig back at the time, but then we all went on to study. Came to Munich, did my bachelor's and master's, and then started again. Started various projects. I did the Startup Safari in Munich, which was one of the biggest ecosystem events. I mentored for a couple of programs, but my main venture and where my heart is Smokeless. That's a technology to conquer smoking addiction we launched in order to help people quit smoking.
Yeah, that's nice. We'll come to Smokeless in a second. And your background, are you more business, engineering? Where do you fit in the
I'm,
space?
I'm, I'm I'm sitting a little bit in between the chairs. I did something that was called business administration and mechanical engineering. So it was basically 100% business. Plus, we were still going into the courses of the mechanical engineers to get some know-how and horizon in the technical fields. And that was true for me in my private life. While doing a lot of business, I was still DJing, sound engineering, building stuff.
Hmm.
And so I tried to understand both worlds.
Oh, nice. And Right now, from the first question that pops to my mind is from where you sit, being in Germany, in the heart of Europe, right, and seeing the ecosystem shifting since a few years. What's the climate, both from an investor perspective and from a client perspective? So I guess you are trying to seek both, right? So how do you see a shift? Do you see a trend, both negatively or positively? Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. I mean, we see both. There's a lot going on in Europe, especially Germany, Munich. There is a very, very positive trend, and startup scene is getting bigger and bigger. We had a very interesting time in Berlin when Rocket Internet started. That was the first hype. A lot of e-commerce businesses came up, a lot of lifestyle businesses, and startup for the first time was cool, and a lot of people started it. And I think we're seeing the same in Munich. More and more startups get to bigger rounds, bigger valuations, and become those kind of lighthouse examples. We got Celonis, we got Flixbus, we got Personio, and they're doing an amazing job. And a lot of people are actually watching that and getting inspired to really start their own companies. And what I think is the most important thing is people who drive the ecosystem, like the Unternehmertum. They started years ago and planted seeds, and I think now we can see that we're actually um, getting what they seeded a decade ago. We have a lot of initiatives, a lot of capital is drawn to Munich, and more startups are coming out of university, which is a very good thing. So they did a lot of very good things. On the other side, on a macro level, I think despite all those very, very good efforts and initiatives, we're lagging behind in Germany. Um, it's amazing what happens, but if you compare it to, for example, Silicon Valley, we're still a bit slow in some areas. Not necessarily in innovation. We got two of the best universities in Europe. We're producing a lot of inventions, a lot of cool ideas, but sometimes it's a bit harder to put it on the streets.
Mhm. Yeah.
One thing definitely being regulations. It always feels a little bit like we are in a boxing match, but we have one fist behind our backs, while the US and China can use both hands.
It is a protective mechanism as much as it is also, like slowing down, um, the innovation from a commercial perspective. It is not so easy to scale, and I agree with you when I look at which country in Europe produced a global market leader in the last 5 years, right? If you look at the growth of OpenAI, we looked, at how fast you get 10 million users, 100 million users. And when you look at right now, you have some candidates, right? Mistral, and you have some good folks in some companies in Europe, but it's much harder to scale. And I think we should appreciate the protective mechanism of the European Union, that makes it harder for other countries to come and take over some market share in Europe. But at the same time, the world is way bigger than just the European Union. So how to become a global market leader, that's an
I,
aspiration many companies wants to reach, right?
I think that's the most important point, and where I clearly want to put out that statement. It is a little bit more protective with the European Union. The thing is, if they start scaling in their home markets, they simply come here with a big bunch of money, and money solves all those entry barriers and problems and
Yeah.
regulations. While at the same time, our own companies struggle with scaling and putting that bunch of money together because of the regulations that are in place. So I do not say regulations are not good. It's very important to protect society and protect people. But on the other side, we have a lot of regulations and bureaucracy that doesn't add any value. It just makes it harder to
Yeah.
go to the market, while everybody else on the planet does not have that. If everybody would play on the same playing field, that's fair. But right now, the competition's hard because we do have regulations and problems and hurdles to scale, but others don't. So they grow and then simply take over Europe with all the money they generated. So
I feel you. Yeah.
I think if we continue that way, all the next big kind of paradigm shifts and global market leaders um, don't come out of Europe. We
Yeah.
have the idea, we have the people for it, we have the money for it, but at a certain point, they suddenly move away to other markets and start spreading there. And this is what I think shouldn't be in our interest.
No, this is, I see the same. I see the cost of growth being so, let's say, expensive in the US, for example, that European companies becomes a natural target to acquire. So
Yes.
at some point, if you look at, okay, I'm a US market leader in multiple sclerosis, for example, and I need to recruit for the next 5 years 10 million users. If I look at my cost of acquisition in the US for those 10 million in the organization and the legal
Yeah.
aspect, even if the market is juicy, I can stay in the US, have that large market expenditure, but I'm going to basically buy subsidiaries in Germany, in France, in Spain, and basically the same million of users that you could have get in that country in the US, you could have it like 6 times, 5 times, 4 times cheaper. And you have the language, and you have the data, and you have the competencies, and sometimes even better competencies in Europe, right? Because they this is also a gold mine for US companies to come to Europe to actually have those talents. So this is an interesting angle, but also I wanted to come back on smokeless. So what dragged you to that category, that therapeutic area or that industry, right? So why did you wanted to launch Smokeless? So we are a bit curious, to see what was the fire behind, to
Yeah.
start this.
The easy answer is it's the intersection between impact and entrepreneurship and for profit. I think that's where the magic lies because innovation happens where money is involved. But I think it's equally important to have innovations that are for good. So what basically means that means for me, I think technology can change a lot of things, as you see with AI, and it can boost productivity, it can make things easier. But I think the most interesting use case is in healthcare because that's actually where the KPIs are not month over month growth or revenue or churn, but it's actually numbers of lives saved. And this is
Mhm.
what kind of interests me. I think new technology to be used for the good of people and planet, while still having a business model and earning money and creating potentially unicorn or decacorn is what sparked the fire in me. I always wanted to start another company, but I never wanted to start and run a company that doesn't add any value besides shareholders' value.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And it is also very much aligned with those. Some companies have this kind of ESG impactful mission. We need we need not only to make good profit, but we need to have a real impact on
Yeah,
health, on people health, and people quality of life. So I guess you wanted to feel you can change people's life. Can you tell us more about what we have here? What is smokeless, and how do you oversee that impact through your venture?
absolutely. Before jumping to the solution, we need to quickly talk about smoking addiction. It's the number one cause of preventable death, killing one person every 4 seconds. And that was reason enough for us to look into that. We asked ourselves, how can we have such a fast evolving technology and not having a solution for that? And we looked into smoking addiction and found that this always consists of a physical addiction to nicotine as well as a mental addiction, the habit. And in order to quit, you need to consider both components. And this is where we came with the idea, well, just simply use the smart technology that just came up. We built our own vaporizer. You smoke it, it analyzes your smoking behavior and then sends the data to an app, and the app creates a cognitive behavioral therapy around it. On top, the inhaler gradually reduces your access to nicotine without you knowing. So basically, those two components you should consider when stopping to smoke. are being considered by smokeless. And the most interesting point is by using the newest technology, it is habit conform. It is suitable for daily use because it fits into smokers' routines. So they basically don't need to change anything. They come here if they want to quit. They start using the device, and the rest is fully automated without any effort. They are being told what to do each day, involving everything that has worked in the past in the smoking cessation area.
Amazing. And right now, where is the stage of your venture? You are seed stage, you finished your product. Where do you stand with Smokeless today?
It depends a little bit on how you define seed and Series A. There have been a lot of words in the past. I would say we have a fully developed product. Everything is set up. The assets are all there. Development's completely finished. We created the infrastructure that is necessary for running such a company and such a project. And one important thing for us is we are not just another e-cigarette that actually wanna keep people at still smoking. We are going down that medical device way. That means we're accrediting everything as a medical device or medical products in order to guarantee safety, quality, and actually show a lot of credibility. So we're right in the process of certification. And that's one of the things I mentioned before, where I feel we have one hand behind the back. Things change for the worse in digital health Europe. We can talk about that in a second, but one of the effects that came up is waiting times. So we are at the moment basically in the certification process, which takes 12 to 20 months instead of 3 to 6 months like it was in the past. So
Wow.
we're raising another round for finalizing the certification and the go to market. But that's basically where we stand at.
Nah, I can feel the frustration because if you have a good product and you need to put it into the hands of the clinical practice or patients who consumers who wants to have basically a solution, yeah, it's frustrating. And so right now what you basically almost at that stage that once you have the certification you can get to that commercial side, right?
That's true. In the split second, we have a regulatory clearance, so we figured out okay, what's the right way to go, and you get that mark, you start commercializing, and that's one of the upsides that has changed for the better. In the past, there is very interesting initiatives and path you now can go. For example, in Germany was the first country to implement a digital health act that actually
Yeah.
makes digital therapeutics reimbursable. And I think that is a world-class initiative because therapeutics is not like in the past with crazy big objects in a hospital, but more and more happens digitally. And we have a lot of technology that actually works digitally. So it's just the next logical step to make it reimbursable. And I think that's super interesting. And a lot of other countries are looking into that in how to integrate those kinds of apps, technologies into care. And I think um, we are looking to a very bright future in that area and very interesting things to happen. It's just now on the politicians and the notified bodies and authorities to actually execute it and
Yeah.
not getting stuck on drafting regulations for the next 5 years until everybody else on the planet actually adopts it.
No, that's for sure. And question regarding the tech behind it. So I have two questions. One is on the data generation, the evidence, the clinical evidence that you have for this. And I think any partner who wants to distribute this or to partner with you to take it further could, or any investor could have that question around, generating evidence in digital health. Second is about it. I appreciate it very much that there is no AI washing on your presentation.
Yeah.
And even when you talk about your company, there is zero AI washing, which is so refreshing, to be honest, because every pitch deck that we receive, so for the last few months, there is like a huge AI wave of wording, which, to be honest, doesn't really translate to real value to the end user or to to the company. So I just want to have the two pieces, one on the clinical evidence, one on the AI opportunity.
Sure. From a clinical evidence, it is very important to understand that we didn't reinvent science here. Like the cognitive behavioral therapy is a very old concept that is already being used for smoking cessation and treating other diseases, especially mental illnesses and addiction, since basically forever. We just digitized it. The same is true for using the inhaler and the gradual nicotine reduction. That's nothing new. It is all proven to work. What we did is we used newest technology to bring together all those pieces and concepts that have proven successful in the past into a product that is suitable for daily use. One could argue, okay, Daniel, if you want to quit smoking, you need a physical side of things and the mental side of things. I just put a plaster on my arm or a gum, a nicotine gum or a spray, I go to a seminar. That's all true. But if I have a craving to smoke a cigarette on a Friday, it doesn't help me to go on a seminar on Wednesday and put a patch on my arm, because I have that hand to mouth movement, I have something in between the lips. So what we did is we didn't just combine those two components, but did it exactly in the way that is habit conformed to a smoker. So from a clinical evidence, everything that we are using has been used successfully in the past, which doesn't mean that we are not running a clinical trial on our own with that whole concept exactly tailored to our solution, which we are at the moment planning everything, or let's frame it that way. It has already been planned. We developed the whole clinical trial protocols and all that stuff, and we're awaiting to start that in the future.
Okay, that's good to know. And for the other part on the innovation piece, with all those machine learning, LLMs, everything we hear about Gen AI, is this going to help your roadmap to get better value, or are you basically saying this is too early for really seeing a digital health endpoint, right? So in your
I
promise.
I think both is true. We didn't like and still don't like that AI washing. Of course, we could use it in our pitch deck, and it's a tailor-made plan using AI and all that stuff. But if you really want to boil it down, what has helped in smoking cessation the last 10 years has done so without AI. If you want to reduce nicotine, you start at 100% and you go to zero. You can go there in a lot of different ways, but there is no AI necessary to create an algorithm. It's simple as that. Of
Mm.
course, we could state that we are using that, but there is no benefit for the therapy, so we don't claim it. Where AI might come into place is like individual one-on-one counseling or the treatment, because right now, of course, we're developing a plan, and a user gets specific tasks and a specific reduction program, but we planned everything that it happens without a counselor or a basically psychiatrist who you talk to. AI might replace those that we actually offer a chatbot within the app that where you can talk to an AI, because we have seen a lot of people love just talking to AI, and this is a trend we have seen in the last years. They don't even need like guidance. They sometimes just want to talk to someone who answers kind of as a human being, and
Yeah.
this might be of effect for us. AI might make our product even more interesting, but we don't need it to create the first kind version of product that actually works.
Yeah, this is interesting. I will have soon a startup. Maybe I will put you two guys in the same room so to discuss this. But basically, we will have soon on this show, we will have Codesk coming to tell us a little bit more about their Gen AI solution. And I think for healthcare, I think you're right. I like the way you frame it. I think if you don't have the need in your clinical endpoints, right? Because it's so clear and simple, and you just have to bring value. When it comes to human behaviors and changing the human behaviors, finding an empathic answer so that you don't have to search and call and that kind of thing, Yeah, I think there is a new wave of customer experiences or
Yeah.
patient experiences where this could be relevant. But this is nothing linked to digital health. It's a huge category which is called customer experience management, right? Where all call centers are going to be disrupted in a way. So it's interesting to see that trend coming up.
I, I think that's exactly the distinction. There are companies that rely on AI. If I do have a radiology startup and I do image recognition, for example, for lung cancer diagnosis, and AI is completely changing the game, and the AI is at the core of my product.
Yeah,
But if I have something that isn't relying on that, of course, I could use the word AI to raise bigger rounds of money. But at the end of the day, it's I personally do not like it because everybody's going to be unsatisfied, and that's not going to be fun in investors' calls in 2 years.
yeah,
Um, but obviously, what you just said is changing the game, and I think one thing I have realized is um, turn back time 5 years ago. Where people couldn't really imagine to talk to a bot because if it comes to emotional things like addiction, health, they want to have a trust basis. They want to speak to a
yeah.
real human being. This slightly changed with all the improvements in AI and OpenAI coming around the corner with ChatGPT. Even the people outside of our bubble, innovation and startup, they're starting using it, they're starting trusting it. And now, if you put a face to that and you really have you really feel you're speaking to someone who answers the question beside a bot that if it's overwhelmed puts you to a customer support member. They're using it more and more, and this is, I think, we are on the really on the brink of a switch that a lot of people can integrate it into healthcare for conversations and even discussions and just kind of an emotional relationship.
I see. No, that makes sense. So my question to you is, if you get the certification, and it's not if you will get that, right? So
Yes.
when you get that, what is your next move? Are you staying in Europe? Is it a top five EU scale? Are you going to emerging markets? Are you going to the US? So how do you plan your growth? Because that's where people are going to say, it's going to be the key question, right? So
I mean, the thing is, as you know, I'm a big believer in Germany and Europe. We made the decision kind of implicitly by setting up our company here. If I would be interested to go to the United States in the first instance, I would have started my company there.
of
Would have
course,
been way easier and way faster. But I think it's very important to produce those kinds of innovations in Europe. And that being said, we uh, explicitly chose Germany because of the Digital Healthcare Act. I think that's one of the most interesting countries to launch a digital health solution. In the
yeah,
split second, you get a certification and you walk through that process and you can become accredited. It's a major game changer for customer conversion because a customer doesn't need to pay for the solution anymore. So
yeah,
you can go to all the smokers in Germany, there are like 33 million smokers, and tell them, hey, do you want to quit smoking? And do you want to get a 7, 8, 900 euro solution for free because your insurance is reimbursing it? That changes customer conversion significantly. And suddenly people who might not even want to stop smoking, they might give it a try. So it has a very big effect and a very positive effect. And I think it all also comes down to the mindset. If the mindset of doctors and the whole healthcare system is still conservative, it doesn't make any sense. But I think we are moving in the right direction. With COVID, that has accelerated everything like on a hyper growth basis. And by hyper growth, I don't mean companies, I mean the mindset. Suddenly,
yeah.
people were open to innovation, to new things, and it kind of broke up the box. And this is why I think it's so interesting because you don't only have good innovations who might be reimbursed, but you also have people actively pushing that. And I think that's three factors that make Germany the perfect seeding ground for digital health companies.
No, that's for sure. In Germany, I mean, since the all those medical device class to be opened the way, right? So they've been really paving the way for reimbursement models, more investment, right? And other countries as well, right? The other countries are coming behind Germany to say,
Yes.
and now we see, we see how we should mental health, right, is a big thing because of the employees, that got burned during COVID, and I see a lot of surge of this combo mental health plus comorbidities around, for example, not moving
One
enough. Yeah, go ahead.
100%. And I think coming back to your initial question, I implicitly answered it. First starting point would be Germany, and then you simply scale through Europe based on what I call the existence of reimbursement schemes. In the split second, for example, Italy launches a reimbursement scheme, you might want to go there. If France launches one, Belgium launches one, you go there. I think that paves the way on how to scale through Europe. It's not really the customer base because everywhere is someone smoking, but
Mhm.
really it's a system question. But still, I mentioned that before. We have started very good initiatives, but all those initiatives still have problems. So
Mhm.
it's really if somebody listens who is in an authority or is a politician, it's your job now to execute that all the other countries are not running away. And we started the most amazing initiative. The whole world is looking at us. Now it's on us to really execute that to perfection. So we should rather work together and not make it as hard as possible for health companies to enter the market.
That's interesting because also I guess from an investor perspective, are you also looking to only European investor, or because of the fit and the understanding of the region and so on, or do you also basically open up and basically say, hey, let's make this opportunity to invest in Germany through you, right? A reality. So I'm curious to see from a business perspective. I understand totally its positioning. Are you
Yeah.
also open on the other side?
100%. Me personally, I don't narrow down my investors to branches, locations, or stages. I think if you're targeting a vision that big or in health, you need someone who understands it and likes the idea. Of course, the business opportunity, the business model, and all that stuff has to work out too, and at all the fun dynamics. But I'd rather work with an investor outside of Europe who understands what we're doing, who understands what we're trying to build and how big the opportunity is, than with an investor who kind of likes our idea but sits closer to me. So I think there is no upside. I think it's very important for us as startups to be as investable as possible and get out all the hurdles and administrative steps for anybody outside here to invest like what you're doing. Of
Mhm.
course, and I'm personally speaking now, I would love if the money comes from here, from other entrepreneurs, from other founders, if it gets back into the system. But sometimes we also need the little bit more uh, risk-loving US investors. They tend to have bigger funds, they tend to place bigger bets. And that has been true in the last 10 years. And I think it's still true. We're catching up, but still at some point, I love talking to them because they see the bigger picture. It's not just the next step and the next step. They see
Makes sense. Yeah.
more generally where we're heading.
No, totally. I agree. I think it's not one answer only. I think it's a good combination. It's a mix of people
Yeah,
who understand the global perspective of taking a venture truly global, which takes a lot of OpEx and CapEx, like just the marketing of it, right? Usually, I say in Europe, we love building things, and then when it comes to market it and sell it
yeah,
and invest, what I said, well, this burning tree funding, right? Like you need to
yeah,
make some noise, and usually European investors are kind of yeah, we don't really understand what account-based marketing is and why it's 30% of your top line revenue. That doesn't make sense, right? But
Yeah.
in some other industry, it makes total sense to invest that much
Yes.
because it's creating that fast acceleration that makes the company basically get to a position in the market to be not too big to fail, but too fast to slow, right? To slow down.
Yeah.
It means the industry is going to push it, saying, "Oh, let's not reinvent an app and a device. Smokeless exists." You see what I mean? So you
Yeah.
get that kind of traction, and I
Yeah.
think this comes with this type of investors as well. So just a question regarding the team that you have right now. Is this a German-based team? Is it like thanks to COVID, spread across different regions? So can you tell us more about the people who helps you build this?
Right now, it's a German-based team. We started as three founders. One techie. He studied medical computer science. He won gamification awards, and he wrote his bachelor thesis on serious gaming in a healthcare-related setting. Has worked for hardware and software companies in the medical area, so he knows everything about hardware and software. Our designer, he has done a lot in the past for very successful companies, especially in product design, UX, UI, and multimedia design. So he was basically able to build the whole design side of things that ranged from building the app together with our CTO, doing the product design and doing all that. And that was our starting point. And then, of course, we grew to a bigger team in various different locations, in various different branches. We are working with one investor who's also a strategic investor who has 1,000 employees in that area. They have departments for instructions for use, for artwork, for regulatory, and all that stuff. We were working together. And the biggest problem really in health is pretty simple. You have to have a 100% finished product to start the regulatory process. So at some point, you don't need a team anymore because you need to wait for the certification. This is not a problem for corporates who might have 5, 6, 7, 8 products. You simply restaff the team to a different project, and after you get the certification, they come back. It has not been a problem in the past where regulatory just took 3 months. You simply created version 2 of your app. Right now, where you have a big waiting time, we had to adjust. So we literally completely finished the development of the product, then reduced our team back to us core founders until we get regulatory approval and clearance, and then we're gonna build a team again. So that was a big challenge because all the people that worked for us, I loved so much I wanted to keep, but it was absolutely clear we have that gap where we actually need to reduce operations until we get to the next step.
Yeah,
But
makes sense. Hence why you need the bridge, right? To get to the end of the certification, right? So it's makes
yeah, I
total
mean,
sense.
we're very well prepared for that. We have the network, we have the people in mind. We prepared to that split second we get the certification, we can scale. We
Yeah,
closed a couple of partnerships that enable us to do so. That's what I meant by the infrastructure. But from a personal level, it's still challenging to let people go, even if it's just for a year or two. You have worked 3 years together.
of course. And it's not just one company here. It's a trend.
Yeah.
We've seen. So I can talk from what we see, right? We've seen a round of seed round going way more in terms like now in terms of funding that instead of 500K you get now 1.5, 1.8, 2.1, which means the expectation from European VC is way higher. So it means that the valuation of the company is also boosted, and it's almost creating a biotech effect for digital health, if that makes sense. So it means
Uh,
that right now in this industry, you almost need more funding to get through the stage you need to be bankable, right, to get through the door. But it means that you already have to kind of build the company in a such way that someone else can acquire it, in the late stage. And this is not very healthy because we usually see bigger corporations actually sometimes even killing some of those initiatives. So they don't really do a good job of keeping. I'm not speaking in general, but in some cases we've seen that the politics of big corporation and so on can kill the pace of a team that was having a good product.
You might have seen it in the reaction in my face.
Yeah,
It's the number one problem you just addressed.
yeah,
And this is what also annoys me, because it's always a risk to build a business. But the risks normally are: do I find product market fit? Am I able to build the technology I actually do? Can I scale it? That's the right questions, and that's problems, and that's hurdle, and that's fine.
mm,
The reason why we need to raise more is none of them. The
yeah,
reason why we need to raise more money is because of those waiting times I just told you. And the waiting times are man made. And I get really annoyed if we have man made problems. This doesn't make sense.
yeah,
Building a startup is hard in the first place. I don't need someone to put even more hurdles on me just out of that doesn't
yeah.
add any value. Like, there is no reason to do so. And this is where I get kind of really angry at some points. Sorry to say that, but if
No, it's
we are
okay.
we are we are government funded. So one person sitting in an office decided smokeless is so good that needs government funding because it's actually a product we want to see on the market.
Yeah,
1 year later, another guy in another office, but probably the same building, decided, oh yeah, let's just come up with some new regulations that makes it super hard for smokeless to launch. And this is where I ask myself, why? Why wouldn't you
yeah,
support a digital health company to actually go through? And this is what you just said. Look, we need to raise bigger rounds for stuff that is man-made, not because we're stupid or slow or something.
no,
And that
this is clear.
and this is hard for digital health, the whole digital
And
health
this is
branch.
hard, yeah. So that's why some actually, I speak. I'm not going to give the name of the teams of the company, but that's why we see digital health teams in pharma getting some heat because right now, if you and also us, why we started this fintech side because the performance of a purely focused digital health fund is if you're not a corporate VC, right? If you are trying to make a
Yeah,
living out of this only, it's super tough because right now it's becoming more and more like a big ticket to enter. And it's almost when I say biotech, it's like, oh yeah, I will find 6 million and I will build a new molecule, right? That kind of thing.
yeah,
Now it's going to be, yeah, I need to find 3 million and I will buy a team to build a new algorithm for
yeah,
cracking diabetes and those comorbidities, which means to get to 60 million in 18 months valuation, and you need to raise, I don't know, maybe 15 or 18 million.
yeah,
This is not the same type of investor that can sustain this. So the classical pharma or medtech or biotech VCs, of course, they have this kind of stance because they know already who is going to be the G&J and General Electric and
yeah,
Medtronic of the world. You see what I mean? So those guys are going to be, yeah, yeah, but we'll give you our targets and you guys can structure the ecosystem so that we get this excellent innovation stream. And I know and I have friends in those companies, so I have to say I'm not having
yeah,
nothing against them. They play their part and they play their role. They have a center of interest. I think there is a huge the unspoken reality here is that we can't blame the industry. They play their part, they invest in science, they do their part. Fair enough. We can potentially blame governments, but we have a tool which is called voting that could potentially help, here and there. But yeah, in some countries less than some others. But let's say that it's better than 15 years ago from a systemic perspective. And then we have the VC place in Europe where there is a potential to be the bridge, right? To create another venue so that we can create autonomous market leaders that can grow with the help of private capital, right? So that is literally going to be like this US play that we see and we love, in terms of creating this opportunity to be a large organization in 5 to 10 years. I think there is a possibility if the ecosystem really find its place from a venture capital perspective.
Yeah.
That I think is where we have a responsibility to play on our side.
100%. I mean, we also have a big responsibility. We have lived a very privileged life in Germany and Europe, and while everything has been so good, kind of that fatigue comes into play. We definitely need to reduce regulations, bureaucracy, and all those other things. Just opening a GmbH in Germany shies away investors. I mean, in
Try in
Estonia,
France, right? So try to do that in hiring
I
people in
mean,
France.
yeah, you know that things, and I'm absolutely saying that once again. I'm not against regulations, but there is always two ways. You can
Mm.
have it in an extreme, or you don't. Like regulatory sandboxes, like in fintech, that's amazing. Getting a banking license is hard, but it's for a startup if it's small. But now we have regulatory sandboxes where the startup can check if the solution actually works and if it makes sense. And
Mm.
if it works and if it makes sense, you can get the banking license afterwards when you have the money and the resources to do so. We
Right.
need something in health too. And I'm not talking about testing a substance I delivered and I developed back in my bathroom to test that at patients. I'm not talking about that, but there is a lot of stuff where ethics committees say, "Hey, that's absolutely fine. There is no additional risk. We should test it." In the US, you can. In Germany or in Europe, you can't. So we need to reduce that kind of hurdles because we are putting unnecessary pressure on everyone. We are putting unnecessary pressure on the startup and also the investors. An investor who invests 1 million into a digital health startup 10 years ago gets the result X. Now he needs to invest 2 million, but he gets the same result just because of the waiting time and the bureaucracy. There is no additional product development, no additional benefit, no additional marketing. It's exactly it's like inflation. You pay double the price for the same product, and that puts problems to a lot of German VCs or European VCs too, because their funds didn't like magically double up in size. So that's our responsibility to make sure everything we can influence, which is regulations and man-made hurdles and bureaucracy, that we change that for the better. Of course, there's stuff we cannot influence. We cannot influence the laws of physics. If I'm a cold fusion startup, it's hard to eliminate hurdles, or in the medicinal or drug development, like you said. But there is no reason for letting a digital health startup wait for 15 months until accreditation if you could do the
Yeah,
same in
that's a
two.
lot. Yeah, the 15 months is like crazy. It's especially in the world if you put digital, right? The world healthcare would probably like if you are doing a clinical study and so on. And that's why I think you will see that at some point, well, from some of the exercise we have, those in silico, population where
Yeah.
governments are going to give you, like you talked about that sandbox. Imagine the world tomorrow where, as a society, Germany will tell you, yeah, okay, we'll have an in silico model of the German population that has been trained for the last 3 5 years on 50 years of electronic health records and habits and consumer data.
Yes.
And if from that model your tool in a few weeks is showcasing a change of behavior that is positive, we will reimburse you according to the real world evidence that it
Yeah.
has on the market. So I think it's going. So the positive news is I see the trend that this is going on the right track from a willingness perspective. Translation into laws and implementation and so on, it's a bit not there yet, right? So that is
Yes.
where it's a little bit in, yeah, okay.
I mean,
What do we do now?
100%. I mean, I don't want to be always the negative guy, but I think when talking about digital health, it's very important to outline the problems we have and that we are lagging behind. On the other side, I said, look, we're looking in a bright future. We have that initiative. We have people moving. It's changing. I just want to make sure that that change starts in Germany or Europe, and maybe we are now having the chance to be the world's first and create lighthouse examples, like Silicon Valley was back in the days, but probably it's our turn now, and this is why I kind of prominently outline the problems, because maybe we have the position to change those.
Yeah, so for sure. So we come at the end of our talk, my friend. So it's been almost an hour. You see how it goes fast, right? When we try
Oh
to
yeah.
deep dive into this. So I will invite everyone after this talk. It will be replayed on different channels, and I'm going to put the link of your LinkedIn and the link of your company there. So if people want to have a follow-up conversation directly with you, they can. On our side, so real thank you to you and to take the time to give us a unbiased voice. I think this is what we wanted, like a conversation in an office where we can really talk about some not political correct topics. Sometimes it's okay. So we want to speak the truth here, and I think you did it. So all the best for Smokeless. We're going to definitely follow you closely. And yeah, potentially you might come to a panel next time, where we bring some other German. Maybe we'll do a German college of entrepreneurs, right? That you will be one of them, and you can relate to your experience.
Well, thanks.
So
Thanks for having me. Definitely in for the panel. If you bring regulators and politicians, the
yeah, I
more
might.
the more the more I'm in. But thanks. It was
Yeah,
very
I
interesting.
might actually take you on the word on this one. So yeah, so and for the people who wants to follow us, yes, you can actually go to allegory.capital/events. We have all our episodes there as well, and if you want to subscribe and receive it by email, you can go there. So it will be episode 11 already. So we started 11 episodes ago. Obviously, open to feedback. Give us whatever you guys want to talk about. If you want us to bring Daniel back, we can ask him again. And if you want us to tackle another topic, we will start that in every episode. We will answer the questions. Thank you guys so much, and see you to the next one. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel.